A father on the run, his 3 daughters dead, and now a new discovery. For weeks, investigators searched for answers, and now they say they found the proof. Blood recovered at the scene confirmed to be Travis Decker's, making him the only suspect in the girls' murders. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kennedi Walker, and I'll walk you through the details. You're watching Law and Crime. It's now been 1 month since the manhunt for Travis Decker began, and this week, investigators confirmed a major development in the case. Blood found on Decker's abandoned truck has been confirmed to match his DNA, according to the Chelan County Sheriff's Office. The truck was discovered June 2nd in a remote part of the Rock Island campground in Washington, not far from where the bodies of his 3 daughters, Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia, were found. And now DNA evidence confirms Decker is the only suspect in their murders.
We will not stop. We will keep going. He just has to make one mistake, like the sheriff said. We will find him. He will be brought to justice so the community can heal.
Search teams made up of law enforcement, canine units, and volunteers continue combing through the dense wilderness for any signs of Decker. He's wanted on multiple charges, including first-degree murder and kidnapping, but has managed to elude capture. Photos released by the U.S. Marshals show just how intense the search has become. Tactical teams navigating steep terrain near the Colchuck Lake area, armed with camouflage, spotting scopes, and long-range rifles. While early leads gave investigators hope, officials now say there's no confirmed evidence that Decker is still alive. But each day that passes without a sign of him increases the chance he may have died. Images released by investigators show how Decker may be attempting to alter his appearance after weeks on the run. If he's still alive, authorities believe he's using his survival skills to evade capture. In early June, hikers reported seeing someone they believed was Decker.
And then just the behavior that we saw from the lone hiker did not match. That was typical with everyone else we were seeing up there. So again, that sparked our interest.
A helicopter crew responded and briefly spotted the person, but before they could make contact, they disappeared into the trees. Authorities say it wouldn't be the first time someone has managed to survive and hide in this kind of terrain. In 2020, Jorge Alcantara Gonzalez, wanted in a homicide investigation, survived 23 days on the run in similarly harsh conditions. Both men are believed to have experience in off-grid survival. Police say if Decker is still alive, he remains dangerous.
When you see him, say something to us. We want to find him. We want to bring him to justice. We want to set up the opportunity for him to stand in front of our courts and our judges and face justice and hear the voices of Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia, whose lives were senselessly taken by evil.
This is a Law and Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed with a brain or spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. Morgan & Morgan is investigating claims that patients weren't properly warned about this risk. It's free to check, takes just a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So scan the QR code on your screen, click the link below, or go to forthepeople.com/LCDepo to see if you qualify. And here to break down this story with me is retired NYPD detective David Sarney. David, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the DNA. How does a match on the truck shape the investigation behind the scenes?
Well, the benefit of the matching DNA to Travis at this point, as far as if there's a prosecution in this case, and I'm going to guarantee there will be a prosecution, it just lends credence to the fact that he looks like to be the sole suspect in the murder of his 3 kids. So this is why it's beneficial for, the case is still going to be investigated. They're still going to be looking for him, but you still have to get all the evidence that you have available and tie it all together. And right now, the speculation is now he is the solo person involved in the murder of his 3 children.
And just walk us through what happens when evidence like blood is found. How fast is it tested and what's happening in the background during that time?
Well, when they did the crime scene in general, you have an area, which is the truck was the start, so they started outwards. So anything outside that truck, they're going to look for anything forensic, any trace evidence. The trace evidence being there was blood located that looks like a handprint and they get that blood, they extract that the sample of that blood. They also check any other evidence around that vehicle. When you're dealing with these vehicles, you don't want to just go into the vehicle, start taking things out willy-nilly. You're going to take start from the beginning to the end, either from the rear of the truck to the front and inside. It's a step-by-step process. The crime scene is not going to move. You're going to keep it where it is, and you have time. One of the benefits is about crime scene. You have time to try to recover as much evidence as you can, be it probative evidence that is physical or more trace evidence like DNA.
And we know that the truck was found near the girls' bodies. What stands out to you about the fact that he allegedly left the girls' bodies where he did, if he is found guilty of this crime? Do you think that that was a strategic move by Decker or a mistake?
It all depends on the situation. Could it have been remorse? We don't really know, but there was no attempt to hide the bodies in a sense. It was sort of, where the scene was pretty much a concentrated scene. So we won't know the mindset of why he did what he did at this point or why it was set up, but it allows the investigators at the time, during this time, to really focus on the evidence that's there. So, this is the one thing that you want to do. And, as horrific as this case is, and as emotional it can be, you have to work as an investigator in a non-judgmental, non-emotional way. You just want to get everything done. You want to dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure everything is done at that scene properly. So this way, when you recover evidence, that evidence is probative enough that you can use at trial later on.
After a month on the run, I mean, just what does that tell you about Decker's level of planning?
Oh, this is the thing. I know, the sheriff doesn't believe there was. I don't really know. He's apparently been on the run for this is about a month now. Now they're not sure if he's alive or dead. So this is the one thing you're looking at is how prepared was he? Prepared enough to leave the scene. Prepared enough to ditch all the items that he had. He has lived off the grid in the past. It's nothing unusual for him to do so. Him leaving the dog with finding the dog and having the dog taken in custody. He didn't hold on to the dog, so he wanted to be as light as possible when he fled that location. How light he was, how much property he had with him, how much survival equipment he had with him, we don't really know because no one was there at the time he did this. But water sources are an issue. I mean, he has to. I don't know where he's getting his water from, because that's one thing you have to think of is you can survive on some things, but water is a vital resource when you're on the run like this. So I have a feeling that they're going to locate Travis, but in the state how they're going to recover him, that's up to what will happen when they find him, alive or dead.
Right. And just going based off of that experience that we know that he has, I mean, just how much does that training actually help someone evade law enforcement?
Well, I'll tell you, if you're a novice like me who goes out into the woods, you're not going to survive long. But he's a person who has been trained, regardless of the amount of times he failed ranger school. He has learned how to survive. And right now, it's been 5 weeks, and he's been able to avoid any contact with law enforcement. He's left campsites, they believe that he might have used. But right now, it's a needle in a haystack right now. That needle is on the run. And that's something that makes it difficult to do in apprehension because the needle is not staying put. But that's why they've used cadaver dogs. Maybe there's a chance that he died. They're going to start utilizing boats near water sources. So they're going to really do. They're still doing as much as they can with the sources and resources available to them.
What kind of psychological toll does hiding in the wilderness take, even for someone with survival skills?
That's the issue with you're dealing with the subject in this pink, the suspect. He has PTSD or believed to have PTSD. How does his mindset in handling this? I mean, is he able to be really that focused? And that's the one thing you're looking at. For 5 weeks, you've been focused on running away and surviving. Where will the mistake be made? And that's what the sheriff is looking for, because everyone makes mistakes. And I think throughout the process, throughout this trailing of him and trying to locate him, there will be a mistake made. And that will be when law enforcement is able to jump on it.
When you say mistake, what exactly do you mean?
Anything, leaving something on the scene, being seen by somebody. Because right now you have everyone looking for him. It's now the summer. Are there going to be more people out in the forest at this point? There's a possibility. Will he be noticed? Will he be recognized? That's another thing. I mean, this is where it all comes down to. You're going to have more eyes and boots on the ground, not just with law enforcement, but now you're going to have people who are going to be out there, doing recreational things. And this is another thing that may assist in the apprehension, because the community and the public always is important to an investigation. They're the ones a lot of times give the tips to find these suspects.
If you were leading this manhunt, where would you be focusing your resources right now?
Well, I think what the sheriff is doing is a good idea. I mean, they're looking to, they put drones out there, they do have helicopters out there. And it comes back down to how many boots on the ground can you have available to do this? Continue put this out in the media constantly. Keep reminding people of the dangerousness of the suspect. Keep reminding people that he's still out there. We don't know where he is, but if you do see someone see something, say something. So if we keep with the media presence, keep with the push on that, utilizing any other source you have. They're looking to do predator drones at this point. So they're really looking to see, you know, you have the boots, you have the people on the ground, but now you're going to have to encompass everything and consistently and continuously put this out to the media until he is located one way or another.
But while I understand that, I mean, it's been weeks, right? That at this point, it's been a month, and people are getting tired. Some people may, no longer be available. They may not have all the resources that they would like. I mean, and also just given the fact that they don't know if he is alive or dead, how do investigators decide when to pull back on some of those resources or even when to double down?
Well, they had pulled back, I believe, personnel because the issues of the straining of any type of resource, and manpower is always one that you always lose a little bit of. So, that's why sometimes you bring technology into it more often than not to try to relieve the amount of and I say the boots on the ground, the resources, manpower, and that's why they've used volunteers. They're trying to get more people involved, but then again, you're bound by what you have, and if you don't have enough people to help on this thing, then you try to fall onto the technology that's available for you, heat-seeking drones and the like. That's what you try to do, but it all comes back to you can have them in the air. Where is the located resources on the ground to be able to coordinate from what above ground to below two grounds? And that's the one issue. I believe they had him. They saw a helicopter, saw someone that might have been possibly him or a person fleeing, and it took some time for the manpower to get to that location. So the connectivity is difficult because of the terrain is always difficult when you talk about a forest, and sites available by helicopters. Can they see everything that's on there? You have trees and the like out there. So
Based on what we know, what does Mr. Decker's behavior tell you about his mindset before and after the girls' bodies were found?
well, I mean, he apparently made the call, said they'll be back at 8, doesn't go, doesn't take them back, gets rid of his phone, dumps all his property after the incident takes place. This is all speculation, of course, because we can't say we don't have him convicted, but right now he is the main suspect. And then where he went from there, he had time, and that's the thing. He did have available a day or so plus to get away from that scene. So that's a day or two that police have to catch up to that scene. So this is the issues that come into play with the tenacity. I think the sheriff brings to this, and the belief that he's going to be found. That's what you have to do, and you do the best you can with what you have, and that's what they're doing right now.
And let's just dive more into that. The fact that he did have a couple of days, in order to leave or escape before they even started searching for him. Can you explain? Because a lot of people are wondering how that even happened. I know as soon as he didn't bring the girls back, Whitney Decker, the girls' mom, she went to police. She tried to get an Amber Alert. They said they didn't have enough information. Of course, hindsight is 2020, but don't you think that if that would have happened, if they would have taken her advice and listened to her, that maybe we would have already found Mr. Decker?
I can't speculate to that, but these are the problems when you have custody issues. He did not violate the custody. He was allowed to see his kids. That was acceptable. He didn't bring them back that day. And is it unusual for it to happen? It was, but to a point where have people been 4 or 5 hours late? The Amber Alert doesn't necessarily mean it's being absolute. They're gonna locate him and the kids. The Amber Alert is just to notify everybody that you're looking on the lookout for someone. And the thing is, the vehicle was in the woods, so it wasn't like it was in the location. And how hopefully whatever tracking devices or able to track from the location of where the incident takes place to where he was before, that may happen as far as the prosecution part. But as far as the Amber Alert, I don't know what exactly would have been beneficial. There are a lot of questions as to why does he allowed unsupervised visits. with a person who doesn't have necessarily a home, a domicile to be at. That's something else. But when it comes to law enforcement, we can only act when there's we didn't have a missing person at that time. It was a custody issue, and he was supposedly had custody at that time, and he overstayed the custody. And then once they decided that this was more than just a custody issue, that's when they started to work, and that's this is where we are now.
If he is still alive, do you think he's trying to get somewhere or just trying to survive?
Combination of the two. You're having somebody who apparently is out there. He's running himself ragged to an extent. This is not a forest that's easily walked through. This is something that he's trying to hide. Does that wear and tear on your ability? Does food sources or the lack of food sources also wear and tear on his mental health, which already we knew was detrimental? But does that also affect his thought process, where he eventually just says, I've had enough, and just somehow goes somewhere and gets identified, or just goes to a location and says, yeah, I'm surrendering? Or the issue may be that the cadaver dogs eventually, when they're put out there, get a hit, and that's what they'll find.
Right. And I know that's what police are searching. They said that they have extra canine dogs out there. They have people on the ground, and they're not going to stop looking until whether they find him alive or not. But talk to me more about the terrain. How does that affect everything from tracking him to the risks for officers?
Well, it's definitely risky for officers because you're going into areas, or you're going into the woods, into a forest. Even though it's traveled to an extent, there's still hazards there. You can be injured just by walking around. You don't really know the area you're on. It's not like it's not a suburb. It's not a street location. This is you're walking pretty much blindly through the forest in hopes of looking for someone. So you may be in the process of looking for someone, not realizing the terrain that you have. Maybe you might slip, you might fall. And I know that the suspect in this case is doing the same thing. But we're a lot of these officers, and I believe some are going to be great at this. You're trying to find that needle in a haystack, and that needle keeps moving, and that's where you have to really see, can they find that one thing, that one call, and get to the scene as soon as possible. And that's really what it comes down to. So the terrain is difficult. The aerial work is difficult, and this needle is moving around. So you have to determine, how much more can we do? And I believe they're doing as much as they can at this time. So this is what we're going to. It's sad. It's just a sad series of events that he has been caught. People are upset by that, but this is something that takes time. All of these events, the 47 minutes without commercials doesn't end this way. There's a person who's suspected to murdering his 3 children, and has some skills in evading people by living off the grid. So this will be an eventual apprehension one way or another. It's just a matter of when.
How do officers prepare for a potential confrontation when a suspect may be armed or trained and desperate?
Well, that's the issue, and you're going to have people. You're going to have officers. Obviously, they're going to be armed. I've seen some of the search parties out there. They're fully armed. They're wearing body armor. They're in their camos. They're prepared to confront him. And what you're looking to do in any type of apprehension situation is you want it to end with the person the suspect surrendering. But there are times that these suspects don't surrender. They don't go gentle to the good night, and you may have a confrontation. Hopefully there isn't. So if he's still alive, and they make the observation, make that apprehension, everyone is safe, and that's really what it comes down to. Nobody goes out of this injured or dead.
If this ends with Mr. Decker's body being found in the woods, what would you be looking for at the scene?
You'll be looking for anything, again, trace evidence. You have a body there. What led to his death? If that's what you're finding, what was the cause of that? They believe he's surrendered all his family has all his weapons, but doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't have one himself. What could possibly have surmised that? And not only that, we have to really take care in the sense of when you locate that body, because you don't know this person's mental state. You don't know is it booby trapped? So you're going to take some time to, if they find a body, they've got to determine that body is actually no longer moving. So it's going to take some time to move to that location, and make sure that everybody who is going to locate the body and apprehend that body, the body is no longer alive, and there's nothing dangerous that may cause, if they do make a move of the body, that body could have some booby trap on it. So these are things you have to think of now. We never thought I'd have to think about it before, but now we're starting to have law enforcement now has to deal with these situations that it's not always what we see immediately. You have to maybe take a step back before you just jump on it.
Absolutely. Well, what's the chances that someone's helping him? I mean, I know that sounds crazy given just, the extreme manhunt that's happening right now, but could there be a small chance of that?
There could be any chance, but given the fact that people, this is a crime that it's very difficult to uh, not believe that people aren't going to be angry, upset, and you to sit there and say we're going to help a person who is suspected of killing his own kids. Uh, I don't know anyone who would do that, but as we've seen before, people are some people are very odd that way. But I don't. Given the fact he's been out there for so long, they've seen campsites. I don't think anyone's with him because if they were, I mean, he left his dog. It wasn't like he wanted to have any extra baggage with him. So, could it be? Anything's possible, but I would think it's highly unlikely.
What do we think about the possibility that he could be hiding in plain sight right now and not in the woods at all?
Well, that's been the other issue too. So anytime these type of grid searches take place, I'm going to probably presume they're doing a grid search. You always have to sort of backtrack to make sure because where's the best place to hide? A place has already been searched. And I learned that, as a kid in hide and seek, where's the best place to hide? The place that somebody had looked already and they already determined nobody's there. Is that a chance that this guy is, the suspect in this case has seen them come and moved back? And now you have to send the manpower to reverse their grid search, and then you have to try to step slowly. That's why it's a very arduous task for what you're putting law enforcement into, and that's why it's taking as long as it is. As much as everyone wants this to be over, it's not going to be over until and that apprehension takes place, and hopefully it'll happen as soon as possible. But we've seen it's been almost a month, a little over a month at this point, and he's not in custody yet, one way or another.
Right. And just final question, David, before I let you go. What's something the public doesn't realize about a manhunt like this? And I think you've covered it. Just the fact, because like how you said, it's been a month. Some people are getting tired. They're wondering where he is. They're giving up. They may not be sending in as many tips as they did in the beginning, but it's important that they don't give up, right?
Exactly. And that's why I say, the public, that's why it's important for this story to be continuously out in the public forum. Because the more it's out there, more people remember. When things take time, memories fade and the story fades off and people lose interest. The reality is no one loses interest in the apprehension of a suspected murderer. And that's how law enforcement is. And the public should also be that way, that we cannot let people suspects like this get away with it. And he's innocent, proven guilty in the court of law, but right now he's a wanted person for the murder of his 3 kids. So in order to do that, if we keep putting out there, people are going to remember, and then that's not going to just fade into the ether. We're looking to find that person, and law enforcement will continue to do its search as long as it can, and that's the one thing. As much as resources are available, and as long as we keep it out there, and I think it's been beneficial that the sheriff has been putting this out there constantly.
All right. Well, this is a story that we will be following closely. David, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you very much. Take care and stay safe.
Decker is described as 5'8" with black hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a tan or green shirt and dark shorts. If anyone sees him, they're urged to call 911 immediately. For Law and Crime, I'm Kennedi Walker.